morning, everybody, and welcome to today's episode of Market Check, brought to you by BV. There is no second best daily YouTube live stream to talk about markets. Welcome back, guys. It is May 7th. More importantly, happy FOMC day. For some, that might be considered a holiday. For some, I'm sure you're probably always dreading these FOMC days. If for no other reason, right, then we have to talk about that, other than potentially more entertaining things going on in the market. But I'm Tommy. You guys also know me as Snorlax. I'm joined by this collection of Anakin and Padme, Tucker Jackus, and of course Prometheus. Welcome, welcome everybody. The elephant in the room is probably FOMC, but there is some movement going on in markets a little bit before that. Obviously, we'll have a lot more after. Before I can get into kind of some personal analysis, right? The team's analysis, and maybe even some good memeing. I'm going to ask if you guys can hit the like button for us. We came out a little bit creatively today, and we would be very appreciative, as always, if you guys could smash that like button for us on an FOMC day, on an event day. Whatever justification you need to hit the like button, we're always appreciative when you do. But getting into the charts on a bit more of a granular basis. Bitcoin and ETH are basically flat. I guess, when I look at stocks, they're pretty much flat. We kind of gapped up yesterday afternoon on the news that Besant was going to be negotiating with China here in a few days. We'll see if any sort of China deal is imminent, right? That's kind of been something pretty consistently that we've been saying will probably move the market in a pretty extreme way. It's just a matter of, okay, when do we get some of that clarity? And I think this market, realistically, the way I'm kind of increasingly viewing things like Bitcoin and equities are like, we have so many headlines, bearish and bullish, that we will probably get here over the next few weeks. It's the schizo price action that we've been viewing, especially I think on equity markets here over the last probably 4 to 6 weeks, is very likely to continue, I think. So if you enjoyed trading the last 4 to 6 weeks, congratulations. It's probably going to get even crazier. And if you hated it, if you lost everything, well, I've got some bad news for you. This regime is probably going to continue where we just continue to ebb and flow, ping pong, some might say, on the good and the bad news. But Jerome Powell has a chance to play his hand here in this game that we that we seem to be playing. Bitcoin grinding up towards 97K. Most of the altcoin market seems to be bleeding outside of a handful, but really mostly everything in crypto is pretty flat as a whole. But those are my opening thoughts, guys. I'd love to know what we're thinking today. Obviously, Jerome Powell will move the market in one way, whether it's up or down. We can speculate as far as what direction that will be. But how are we doing, guys? What are we seeing in the markets?
We're doing good. We're doing good, Tommy. We're doing good. I think we're in a somewhat interesting spot. I think we're about to see a lot of volatility today. That's really not a hot take, but I could see the case for something like this if we're just talking today. Something like that, maybe. But obviously high time frame, I think we still look fantastic. Let me zoom out a little bit. I think above 98, you're back in a big way. So I don't know. I think it's gonna be interesting to see how the market reacts to Powell, right? I think we've had a nice move off these lows, but it's kind of prove it time a little bit. It's kind of prove it time. So want to see us bust through this level for sure. But yeah, that's what I was reading. Yeah.
I'm pretty interested to see what Powell has to say today, just because usually, or for a long time, it was like, well, he's not going to say anything because he knows that if he does say anything, he's going to nuke the market. And now it's like, well, Powell and Trump are clearly not on particularly friendly terms right now. So we have a little bit more of a wild horse with Jerome Powell now at FOMC. I still don't think that we're going to necessarily get anything too off of expectations, but you never know, man. The way this market's just trading, I'm beginning to think, and let me know what you guys think of this opinion. I'm beginning to think that, we look at something like the equity market, the structure on it, even Bitcoin, right? We have so many good news headlines probably coming later this year. We also have, I think, probably equally the opportunity for as many bad headlines. Like, what is the possibility that we just get a broadening structure from here out of Bitcoin and equities, where it's just this constant back and forth of it's so over, we're so back? I kind of think that's probably more likely in the interim than some aggressive trend in either direction.
A broadening structure, you say?
I know, not the type of thing I usually trade with.
Yeah.
I don't know about that sort of broadening structure, but
yeah, channel straight up, baby.
Tucker Nachi.
There you go.
Max Payne.
That would be terrible, actually. 130.
Could you imagine?
90, 140,
Like
110.
all bulls and bears would cope.
Yeah, dude. My God.
You just know, like, I mean, where is the Trump put for markets, right? I mean, it's basically at that, just looking at the cues, that 400 to 430 pivot. If you ever get down near that or below that, there's probably going to be some super bullish news that gets put out, right? And I think vice versa. You can argue the administration, Treasury, and the Fed wouldn't mind seeing stocks lower. So at resistance, you could definitely get some bearish headlines too. I kind of think that's why I'm intrigued to see what Powell has to say today, because I don't necessarily think he's going to be dovish, but I also don't have any reason to believe that he would want to be hawkish either. I guess it's kind of like, a very fine line that he's going to be towing again today.
Yeah.
I'm only interested how he is going to tackle the Trump insults today.
He's going to call him a meanie head,
Hey.
Jack.
Wait, Tucker. Wait. Put those drawings back on.
Like those?
Yeah. Can you like take the squiggly and like, do you see that bottom arrow? Okay. So take the drawing tool. Okay, and when there is the arrow at the bottom on the right, okay, can you, like the literal arrow, right? And then draw a squiggly to the upside, connecting the right, like this, and then and maybe a bit more up, and then do the same, and then do the same on the left side.
Yes. I was like, what are you doing? Oh no.
I had a feeling that's where he could be going.
There it is. There you go. It's as good as we can do.
Nearly.
What kind of candlestick pattern is this?
The inverse dick pattern.
God.
Oh my god. But it's looking nice though, not gonna lie.
No, I think you could maybe get like 460 something again, but I think you're gonna leave this. Leave it unfilled, baby. Unfilled gap. Yeah.
I like it. I like unfilled gaps below us. Because it always leaves people on the sideline, like, what if we going to come back and fill that gap? I feel like I'm not going to purchase anything for the next year.
I think everybody's about to get their accounts probably chopped to zero if they're trying to to trade this on a lower time frame. That's what I feel a certain level of conviction on.
I know. That's crazy.
I mean, dude, look at like E on like the 4 hour. It's insane.
It's disgusting.
What is that, dude? Like, go even lower. What is that?
That's institutional interest, Tucker.
That's ultrasound money, Tommy.
That's literally, you wanted institutions in Bitcoin? Well, you got it.
That's Ken Griffin in the charts, bro.
You
That's
wanted
BlackRock buying $2 billion.
Yeah. Jeez. That looks like the equity market, honestly.
I mean, it's basically like the NASDAQ, except the NASDAQ ended up taking a few more highs locally.
Yeah, that's true. Well, now NASDAQ is going for the lows again. So it will be interesting to see what BTC does here.
That's why I actually think for once Powell is going to matter. At least like just based on where tech is trading right now, right? Like what he says today is going to have an impact on price. Whether he says nothing and hedges close and it lifts price, or he says something hawkish and nukes price. I mean, we're kind of like at the level where I'm expecting a pretty big reaction either direction.
Mm-hmm.
More so on like QQQ than Ethereum, but
yeah, I mean, on the major indices across the board are at, very, very key levels right now. We backfilled the entire move, and now we're just kind of in wait and see mode, it kind of seems like. And you're really seeing from a positioning standpoint, especially in the options market, large uncertainty and directionality, right? Usually we see calls skew, a lot more calls coming in than puts, but I mean, it's very evenly weighted to both sides, and we are right at that, like, zero gamma level, or like the level of balance. And yeah, either way we resolve based off this meeting, you're going to see a lot of position come off on either side of the board, which is going to add a ton of fuel to the fire to either direction. And I've talked about it. The order books are super, super thin right now, so that just is going to exacerbate either move, really. But the Russell looks terrible. I mean, it is such a terrible chart. I think it's one of the
scam of the equity market.
It's east, literally.
It's one of the only. Yeah, it's one of the only indices that is still in negative, like gamma territory, or like the market is still very much positioning for downside in the IWM versus where everything else is relatively flat.
Because we had the highest we had the highest interest rates in decades. So obviously that period doesn't favor low caps, but this is exactly why this is such a great buying opportunity, both Russell and ETH, because we are heading into low interest rate period again. And obviously probably short-lived for like a year or two, but that's an opportunity.
Does the 10-year look like today? Do we think we get any surprise cuts? Last call for those.
No chance.
No chance?
No
I don't
chance.
think so. I don't think so. I think the 3 months yield would be nuking if that were the case, and it's still stable right now. So I don't think we are getting that.
What about TLT? What's that doing today? The long end. I love when Wabi makes me talk about what I'm actually trading. I'm like, yeah, let me just trade the ticker TLT. And he's like, no, you're going to call it the long end.
When you start typing TLT USD in TradingView and find out
TLT wrap these.
I mean, this is basically just inverted 10-year, but
Yep.
Yeah,
hard to know if that's going to bleed more or if it's about to like explode at least
It's not-
into that like 110 level.
it's not even 10-year. It's more like 30-year. And it kind of says it in the name. It's 20 plus year.
I mean, that looks to me like it's going to get a pop to the upside.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But
absolutely.
I think it makes sense. I do not see like the very long-term yields to be going as much down, because even though the local yields will be, I do not think we are heading to a very longer-term low rates period again. So even though I think we are going to get the cuts and stay down there for a few years, it doesn't make sense for the longer term. Again, these are 30-year, and I think the 30-year will stay there because I think we will get a second leg of inflation. Probably it's going to be very hard to time it. At least like from now, I'll see it when it's coming, like maybe 1 year ahead. But from now it could come like 2028, 2029. Not exactly sure, but I think like we are going to get this cutting period now. Probably get like sub 3% in interest rates, and then we will see a new wave of hiking, possibly even going to new highs. But again, that's like the forecast for the next 5 to 10 years. It's really hard to time it.
Well, I agree kind of with like the order of operations that you just laid out. I also agree timing it is going to be very difficult because I'm kind of personally thinking what's going to happen is they're going to turn on the printer again. That's what's going to kickstart our second wave of inflation. Because I mean, at this point, it doesn't really seem like there are the cracks in the economy that people thought, or rather like ignore what I just said. I think what's likely to cause the second wave of inflation will probably be more fiscal printing as much of an effort as the current.
Wait. No cracks. I heard no cracks in the economy.
The labor market, yeah. I don't think there are really going to be any cracks. At least, not that I can foresee. I'm not a macroeconomist, but I do think eventually the printer will get turned back on, whatever the cause may be. And that will be what brings about our resurgence in inflation. I also think, and I've said this before, I think that inflation is what will eventually lead to Bitcoin being probably hyper adopted, right? The people who are bidding gold right now, probably some of the people who are bidding US Treasury bonds, all of a sudden Bitcoin will become a much more attractive investment vehicle for those people. And I think that's when you really see Bitcoin, trade. I don't know about like parabolic, but when we talk about a $2 trillion asset aggressively moving higher, whatever that looks like, right? That's kind of, I agree with the order of operations that you just laid out, Jack. As I want to add, I think it will be hugely bullish for Bitcoin as it closes the gap on gold, and as gold gets just so much more bloated in overall market cap that it will no longer become or be a viable way to beat inflation.
Yeah, I think the print as you laid out, Tommy, I think it's going to come in terms of either banks having some problems in like again those 3 years, or more likely I see it as Fed purchasing those long-term bonds that no other nation will want to buy anymore, and they'll be forced to buy them. So kind of yield curve control.
Shout out to Tether for doing the needful.
What do you guys think about this chart right here?
Oh, they're not hitting the like button, are they?
Damn.
Let me see what the like button's doing. I'm almost afraid to look.
We're at 66.
Wow.
What?
I'm disappointed in you guys. We might have to just end the show.
Or you will look at the Lean Hawk futures first, and then you will get an ad that you cannot skip.
Tired of outdated trading tools, confused charts, dozens of tabs, endless stress? You're not alone. Introducing BB Terminal, your all-in-one command center for crypto trading. Track your portfolio, monitor the markets, stay ahead, all in one place. From chaos to clarity, from struggle to success. BB Terminal.
Damn.
That's right. Hope
And
y'all hit
straight
the like
back to-
button while that was.
Yup.
Straight back to Lean Hawk futures.
Oh yeah,
We call this the hog sandwich.
the Hawks. Yeah. Prometheus, what's the Jack Stack, the triple hog sandwich? What's it called?
Oh gosh, I can't. Oh, let me look it up. One sec.
God, I can't remember. It's so good though.
By the way, did you know that M2 hit new all-time highs? M2 money
Really?
supply?
I mean, the timeline's been telling me for ages.
Okay, I didn't even see. I was just literally scrolling through the trading view saved up tickers, and I just noticed.
No, I wasn't throwing shade at you, Jackus. I was more so meaning like there's just people who talk about nothing but M2 money supply all day on X.
Yeah, I don't follow those people, so I have no idea.
It's called the Big Pig.
The big pig.
I'm pretty sure. Yeah.
Well, I do not look at these very long-term charts that often because, it doesn't really make that much actionable stuff to me. So, as you said, these people look at them every single day, I suppose. But to me, it only makes sense like every few months to look at these very long-term data points.
What about M1, brother? What's
the
Study
difference?
M0.
Just type SL behind.
Pancake swap.
yeah, they pulled it up on Pancakes. I mean, can we not get this to be candles? I don't think so. That's better. When was this? Yeah, man. I mean, this was the bottom, you know? Kind of, I guess. Actually, the bottom was here. Negative
Maybe-
signal.
It's just postponed.
No signal at all.
What's the difference between M1 and M2?
M1's the more liquid money supply ticker. It actually shows you people's like savings and stuff like that, and it removes kind of a lot of the garbage.
How do you even track that? These people can't even keep track of like Pentagon accounting, and they're
Spending.
telling you this is all of our savings.
M1's really the one you want to look at, especially in the context that a lot of these quote unquote money supply gurus are using the money supply right now. A lot of people are mentioning, M2 money supply, is going to is correlated to the appreciation. An increase in M2 money supply is directly correlated with an increase in Bitcoin price. But with you also have to understand the context is a good majority of that money in the M2 money supply is not liquid in nature and is not flowing into the hands of retail, is not flowing into the hands of the participants, and is not a direct reflection of, everyday people's like capital environment, right? And so M1 is a lot more, I would say, contextually correct to look at than M2. And I think M2 just right now is a complete meme that people are looking at.
There was another one that was
M3.
no, not M3.
What about M squared?
No, it's not. Well, there's that. That's not bad.
What the hell is that?
That is that net liquidity formula.
Looks
I feel like there is zero actionable
No signal.
in this.
Yeah, no signal.
Like I have it too, but
I mean, I think the signal that you can gather from it is that this cycle has not had the same speculative excess as 2021.
yeah, I really think the price represents it very well. The market is once again efficient because what we saw in the since the 2020 lows, if you think about it, we saw major assets grow in price. We saw a huge increase in Max 7 stocks, but then the rest of SPX 493, the prices didn't grow as much and small caps really suffered. So would it make how do you make sense of it? Well, first of all, again, as I said, you've been in this period since 2022, and you can put Russell maybe down below, Tucker. We've been in this period of highest, and maybe put interest rates down below as well. So I think the ticker is US Inter.
US Inter. Barcelona fans in the comment section just got triggered.
Absolutely amazing game yesterday. Like, sorry, but that was a advertisement not just for football but for sport in semifinal. But that's another topic. But yeah, if you going to look at this chart, right? So wait, where are you going?
I'm looking back.
Okay. So scroll there, right? So you get a 2021, then obviously you are getting a maybe you can do vertical line at the 2021 top, and then more or less, doesn't matter, and then maybe make one at the September 2023 low. Yeah. So if you are going to look at this chart, what it tells me is a few things. We had a zero interest rate policy rate across the West, and in that period, low caps did really well because it does favor them. They can borrow at no cost and grow. It's much harder when you go into the highest interest rate period in decades. And the price reflects that because IWM is a low cap index. And if you're going to look at low caps, what they have done ever since, they've done nothing. They've gone pretty much sideways. In obviously ETH, being kind of the same, being the index for low cap cryptos, is also not done much in that time period. And during that period, however, we saw Max 7 stocks to really rally, and they dragged the entire SPX index. The reason for that is that we had a huge AI effectivity growth in that period, while M2 hasn't really done anything, or like the traditional liquidity indexes. And so it makes sense that these stocks grew because it was really the largest ones investing in them. Meta, AI, Google invested in AI as well, and few of these. So it makes sense they grew a lot because AI truly is an effectivity growth. I think, however, that and that little upside that we saw was the foreshadowed end of interest rate hikes and the period in which central bank was going to cut at some point, which happened. And obviously you need to take it with a bit of luck, all of these, um, because it takes time before they take effect into the economy. But I think that we will get a lot more rate cuts than we got so far. And interest rates, I think, will go sub 3%, which is, so far we went down from 5.5 to currently being at 4.5. And I think we're going to go sub 3%, maybe even down to like 2.5. We'll see. But it's more than what we had so far. And in percentage too, in like the actual percentage, not in basis points, but in actual percentage. So I think that is going to favor the low caps, and they will go up in this time. It will favor them. So both Russell and ETH. But then we will hit certain benchmark, and I think interest rates will, and it will stay down there for some time. But at some point, I think we are going to hit a new wave of inflation and interest rates will go up again and hit new highs. But again, this is more like, few years ahead thinking. But I think all of these charts reflect that perfectly.
Jackus, where do you think housing fits into this equation? Like the pricing of housing?
I think housing, actually, it's interesting. We might see another wave of house prices going up, but I think that is going to be the final blow for them because there is going to be an insane incentive across all of the West, so US, but also Europe, to put the cost of houses down because young ones cannot afford them, and they will probably introduce some taxes. And so like it can go like this: you own one house, okay, that's fair enough. Two, all right, you have like this weekend house that you go to. I'm not sure how you guys call those, but you can get that. But you own three houses, fine, 25% tax. You own 4, 50%. You own 5, 75% tax on that, right? And they will make you and I just each country will be slightly different, but they will make you sell all of those. Plus we will have that new wave of interest rates going up, which once again will not benefit houses, because high interest rates by default doesn't favor housing market. If you're gonna just put US Inter into the equation, if you're gonna cut this one, Tucker, and just put interest rate US Inter, as a base chart.
Short volume. There we go.
Yeah, and zoom out even more. You will see that interest rates have been going down for 40 years, and that alone favors housing market, because it's constantly cheaper to get access to the liquidity, and it has created an unsustainable environment where there is like a vast majority of young people who cannot afford a single house, and then you have people who got the lucky and early access to liquidity in the prior years, and they can constantly borrow more and more, and they own like 20, 30, 50 houses, right? There is like few individuals who own so much, and there is a lot that own none. And it's very easy for the politicians to push this into the legislation at some point, because they need, there is going to be only a few who own a lot, but majority who doesn't own anything, and the majority will vote for them. So I think that is the way this is going to go. Again, this is not over like a 1 year type of thing, but more like over the next 10, 20 years, and it's going to be a trend, just like we saw a 40-year trend of interest rates going down. We will see a trend of interest rates going up through these cycles that they create. And I think there's going to be another incentive. They'll say, hey, want to store wealth, don't do it in housing, because you are robbing the young ones to live like normally. So take your capital and instead put it into stuff like Bitcoin or gold if you want to store wealth. I'm not saying the housing market will go away, but lots of the easy money in housing that cheated the system, there'll be strong incentive to put an end to it. So yeah, we might not go that high, but like I think we could go to like 8 or maybe 10%.
Man, if we go to like 18% again, I'm gonna cry unless I have a house. Or I guess I wouldn't be crying if I own a house. I would be crying if I own a house because it would go down in value. But if I was a buyer, I don't really want to wait until like 2040. But I also don't want an interest rate that high. So I guess cash heavy would be favored at that point. But no, Jackus, I've seen a lot of commentary around Bitcoin's relationship with real estate. I think it was it Eric Trump or Don Jr. that made a comment about it like 2 or 3 weeks ago about how it's kind of a hedge against real estate. I wasn't quite sure what he meant by that. Maybe you guys can shed some commentary, but I've seen that rhetoric, I think, pop up increasingly more here over the last few months.
Yeah, I haven't seen that one either, but like this just makes longer term sense to me. And I think it's really beneficiary for the whole society if all of these real estate barons will have to sell. They'll be forced again by taxation plus high interest rates, and that will create big supply, and obviously by default that will lower the houses cost. And it doesn't even have to be in terms of like prices of houses going significantly down. They will just not go up while the inflation does, and that will do it, because it's not really about like the absolute absolute values in prices, but it's about your ability to purchase stuff, like your purchasing power. So what I mean with that is that we have probably the most overpriced houses in the entire Western world, what we can quote unquote Western world, and by default you are not supposed to buy when you have the most expensive houses ever, pretty much. Like taking I love that metric, how much houses you can buy for a year's salary in your country, because that's the best. And all of these are in a parabola across the West, pretty much. So yeah, I think this will play out, and the hedge is truly BTC.
God, that chart. Bitcoin dominance making a new cyclical high this morning. Not completely surprising. Man, that does not look like a chart that is topping soon. At the risk of sounding overly redundant.
Yeah. That looks to be going parabolic now too.
Yeah.
I still think when ETH-BTC hits that, lowest price since like 2017, 16.
Oh,
Jeez, man.
17, yeah.
Just
But if
makes
you were to
it
invert
work.
this chart, right,
It's Bitcoin dominance.
and put it on log, is that something that you want to fade?
It's no, but it's something that it probably does this.
It's something, maybe not that much, but it's something
Yeah.
you do not want to buy either right now.
That's true.
So I agree, it's something you might not want to be fading just yet if you solely look at this chart. If you're gonna look at the broader context, I think we are getting near the fade zone.
You're gonna get a blow off in Bitcoin dominance, and then you're gonna get a capitulation in BTC, right? Like
we are starting. I've noticed few like, you know, these moon Carls and these guys with millions of followers calling for like 72%, 76% BTC dominance. You know, usually they are the most vocal at the peaks. So I would say I still think we're going to hit like six. I do not know the exact numbers. I think 68%, and could rotate there. Maybe we get like an overshoot above the high, maybe. But yeah, I think the rotation's kind of close.
And you know what the ETH BTC chart looks like is the Sol BTC chart, and I think a lot of market participants are not ready, and would get caught very offsides by the move that I think Sol BTC chart is putting in.
I think you meant Sol East chart. The Bitcoin dominance is Sol East.
Or if you look at Sol Bitcoin versus ETH Bitcoin.
Is that what you're talking about?
Identical. No. I think that if you put ETH BTC on another pane below this or above this.
Wait.
Whoa.
What?
All right. It's time for another ad
criminal.
that you cannot skip.
Every morning, coffee in hand, I open up the BB terminal. We built this platform to be your trusted
And hit the
companion,
damn like button.
whether you're
Anon.
actively trading, investing for the long haul, or even dabbling in the degen space. Let's start with the BB portfolio. It integrates with over 60 blockchain networks and supports both wallet connections and manual entries, making it flexible enough for any trader. On the active page, you'll find advanced charting tools, complete with more than 21 custom scripts to give you deeper insights. Beneath that, our intuitive heat map helps you spot key support and resistance levels easily. But we know active trading isn't everyone's style, so we created the DCA page, equipped with over 35 thoughtful indicators. It's designed to assist you in making informed, strategic, and long-term investment decisions. We're genuinely proud of what we've created here at BB, and we continually strive to improve it every day.
Dude,
Yeah, I
the
recognize
coffee
that
cup
guy.
close up is insane.
I feel like we should roll out like an annual coffee cup with some sort of thematic, because we had them in 2022. I feel like we had them in 2024. We need to make it like an annual thing. Like that's the BB equivalent of the calendar.
Jackus has his own coffee cup.
I need a BB coffee cup.
True. We have BB coffee cup.
Yeah, it's just you, Jackus.
No, we have BB. No, we have BB coffee cup.
Do we?
Yes.
I think we have some of the older ones still in stock.
No way.
on,
Like the oldest ones.
No, not the oldest one. No.
Those are vintage now, man.
Yeah, those are antiques.
Truly few
Yeah.
were of those in the comments were around for that era. Maybe none, honestly.
I think we had pillows made, Tommy.
Oh my god. We're like Mike Lindell.
Yes, bro. Man. What are you
Jay,
saying here, Prometheus?
Yeah. Anyways, you guys need to hit the like button. No, on that bottom pane, put ETH BTC. All right. Now put it on the weekly. We're on the weekly on both. Yeah, put it on the weekly on Sol too. All right. So if you draw a horizontal on, might be easier if I just show my screen, honestly.
Yeah, pull up yours.
I just think the majority of the market, especially a lot of these Sol on-chain maxis, are going to get caught off guard by the move that I think Sol BTC is about to put in. Let's see here. All right. Boom. So, I mean, we talked about it, and I think Sol has largely hit its saturation point from the standpoint of the amount of liquidity that the chain is really able to attract, right? We've talked about that quite a bit. I don't want to go into that, but what I was kind of discussing with one of our members the other night was the fact that, you know, Sol BTC is largely starting to lose a lot of ground versus its BTC pair, and the resemblance that it has versus ETH BTC is almost identical, right? We're getting the underside retest of the trend line, just like we saw in ETH BTC. We came back down, you know, retesting the previous resistance, and I think that this chart in specific is likely going to bleed in perpetuity. And I think a good majority of crypto participants are, especially the people that this is their first cycle, are going to get caught off guard by the move that Sol specifically is probably Sol BTC pair specifically is going to put into the downside. And, you know, we talk about it every time, but there's almost a new narrative that spins up with every single leg up that we see in regards to the altcoin sector or with Bitcoin in general. And there's usually something new that the market spins up. And I think whatever that next narrative may be is going to largely dominate a lot of the mind share that Sol, or it's going to actually acquire and steal a lot of the mind share that Sol was able to capture for the majority of the cycle. I think, though, that this chart, you know, doesn't necessarily go straight down in a straight line, Sol BTC, that is, and it's going to take a longer, you know, period of time. But I do think that Sol BTC has, you know, reached its peak saturation point, and, you know, the resemblance that it has versus the ETH BTC pair specifically is almost identical in nature. And a lot of the market participants, like I said, I think are going to get hugely caught off guard by the fact that Solana, you know, is not going to be necessarily the front runner potentially anymore. And you know, we could see a few more pops potentially in the Sol BTC chart, but I do think that this chart will eventually go home where it belongs. And then if you think about it too, how cannibalistic the liquidity is on chain in regards to Solana, you know, that's just not a recipe for success in the long run.
This chart is absurd. Yeah, I think it has a decent chance of playing out, but we'll see. But I would suggest, before you wanting to be a bull, I would wait for just at least EMAs to flip bullish or the structure, you know, because otherwise this can play out.
Yeah, I mean, I tend to agree. I mean, if we can drill down here on the 3-day a little bit on both. But yeah, I mean, you have some really, you know, high time frame levels you got to get back above on your Sol BTC chart specifically for this to really signify for me moving forward for the, you know, for the remainder of the cycle that Solana is the risk on barometer for the broader market, right? You know, just like if you look at this Ethereum pair, I mean, there was some high time frame resistance that we ran into, or some key levels that we're unable to get back above. And ETH BTC largely lost the majority of the mind share. And if you remember, Ethereum largely ran because of NFTs. You know, that was such a huge pivotal narrative for Ethereum that drew in a ton of liquidity and capital. And now you're starting to see, you know, if you go and you look at the NFT sector specifically, I mean, the bid is anemic in there. You know, people that launch these new NFTs are, generally speaking, unable to even mint out. And I think eventually Solana on chain could get to a similar place to where, you know, pump fund volume is largely dead. It's very difficult for, you know, newer tickers on chain to bond. And I think eventually Solana on chain will get there. Because like I said, the model essentially is, it's not sustainable. You know, I get it, people are always going to want to gamble, but you know, the form in which that happens and the nature of it is just going to shift and take a new form, and it's going to evolve into something else, I believe. I don't think that, you know, Solana on chain is here to stay and here to stay forever just because people are addicted to gambling. I think just like what we saw with, you know, Ethereum last cycle, people were still had that gambling, you know, addiction, you know, and mentality, but it was shaped differently. It was shaped in the NFT sector, right? The scams and the, you know, bad actors were largely in the NFT sector. And now you have it with Sol on chain. And the people think that Solana is, you know, just going to dominate forever now and going to be around forever. I think really need to think twice about how the nature of and the makeup of the actual behavior is, and where that is going to lead, and how is that sustainable moving forward.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of am like viewing ETH and Solana as they basically, I mean, people are going to speculate. They're always going to speculate. There's always going to be a place for that in crypto. It will end up taking different forms, right? Like you highlighted it perfectly. NFTs for ETH in 2021, and that provided a persistent bid. You know, not just on NFTs for a long time, but also for native Ethereum. I think that's a big reason why ETH Bitcoin has been more of a bleed rather than straight down, is you've probably always had, you know, a huge cohort of believers in ETH as a chain, even while it's losing value against Bitcoin, right? Because they believe the value is eventually going to reverse. The same thing will probably end up happening with Sol BTC. So, you know, aggressive moves lower, probably, you know, probably won't have quite as many of those, but even still, I think the value extraction that occurred from both respective chains, hot ball of money, is kind of, you know, it speaks for itself. I think it ultimately reflects in the performance of these pairs against Bitcoin. But yeah, I mean, there's always going to be, I think ETH should be a great lesson for how to probably end up approaching Sol, right? This is probably Sol's peak mind share against Bitcoin and ETH. That's not to say that it won't perform on a USD pair, but if you're looking for the next Solana, it's not going to be Solana next cycle, right? That should be somewhat self-explanatory, but you know, we've seen, at least with ETH this cycle, that, you know, you can have good fundamentals, you can try to structure your tokenomics to be more inflationary, deflationary. It really doesn't matter if you don't have enough buyers for your token. And so, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at with it. I am not like, I don't think that Sol USD is just going to go down only forever, but it's going to take a while before you see that outperformance again, possibly even years, which, you know, I think, as Prometheus was alluding to, most people will probably be buying Solana with the expectation that within a year or two, you're once again going to be outperforming things like Bitcoin and Ethereum. And I think you'll realistically need a longer reset time than that. But at the same time, something's going to replace it. Just as Sol replaced ETH this cycle, you know, not literally, but as the token getting a majority, that lion's share of the bid, you're probably going to have a different asset next cycle that's just as well.
What do you guys think that new, you know, mindshare capture vehicle could be?
Probably, I mean, Hyperliquid is the most obvious one, right? Maybe too obvious. Have to see how they would expand. I think ultimately you need to provide speculators something that they can't really get anywhere else. Realistically, I mean, that's why Sol took off, because you could not just shitcoin easier, but you had enough like trust, I think, left over from the cycle before, the inklings that there could be a shitcoin season on Solana. And that, I think, was a big reason why you didn't have to worry quite as much about like liquidity fragmentation on other chains this cycle. But you're going to have to, I think, provide speculators with a new form of a dopamine hit always. Maybe that's yield farming Ponzi's and DeFi again on ETH. Maybe that is Hyperliquid. Maybe it's something that we're not even talking about yet.
I think that could very well be it. You know, it could be something that has not even been, you know, necessarily created yet, or is in the works of being created, and will just come out of the woodworks at the right time. And that's one of the key things that's one of the key things for the newer projects, is just coming out, being at the right time in the right place. And if you're able to, you know, find that surgence of liquidity and capital and mindshare, when things are really starting to fly, and when we're really starting to see capital and liquidity go out on the risk curve, then you could be a huge benefactor of, just like I said, being at the right place at the right time.
And I think as well, like the conditions have to align, right? Like conditions have to align for the narrative to eventually take off through price appreciation. Price appreciation will always precede any, you know, any narratives. And I think Solana is a great example of that. I remember back in like the summer of 2023, talking to some teammates about wanting to farm Solana on chain. There wasn't anything going on, but I felt like there could be a good airdrop. Did I do that? No, I did not. But ironically, on-chain Solana really didn't take off until you had Bonk go parabolic. I can't remember exactly when that was, but Solana was already moving off the floor when that happened. Bonk helped bring more people on chain, and that helped fuel the fire, right? The fire that was also partially fueled by the fact that capital allocators were looking for anything to believe in from a crypto standpoint, and all kind of ended up aping Solana as a result. And again, price went up, narrative improved, on-chain got more liquidity. It was kind of this perfect feedback loop that fed price for months, and the narrative has been fed for even longer. So, you know, just because a narrative is negative on an asset right now does not mean that it's necessarily cooked, but fairly quickly things can tend to align in positive fashion. But they typically do end up aligning, you know, for these pumps to end up being creative, right? It's not just like, well, Solana at $20 or $10, people weren't viewing it as like, okay, this is the next on-chain hub. Because if that were the case, obviously everybody would have been allocated to Solana.
Yeah, and I mean, I remember too, from at the bear market lows, with the whole discussion, you know, behind Solana, just how offsides the market really was with it, in regards to, you know, the only reason it pumped is because of FTX, right? There's all these unlocks happening, the FTX estate, yada yada yada, and it just so happened to be that the market was really looking for, you know, somewhere to gamble, and Solana just happened to be the easiest, the fastest place to do it, and was the direct beneficiary of that kind of, you know, mentality and behavior. You know, also coupled with the fact that the market was, you know, largely offsides with Solana.
Yes, it was. I mean, people allocated on the way down for sure, but the sentiment, like again, sentiment at the low was not Solana is the next place where everybody is going to be shitcoining. It's going to be the premier L1 of the cycle. The sentiment was, should I bridge money over to Solana? Do we think that people will ever use this chain? Literally, I remember having these conversations with people like, will people ever use this chain? And this is when Solana was sub $20. So as price goes up, then you get the narrative. I think people love to view it kind of from the inverse, but history has shown us time and time again that price precedes any changes with narrative.
100% agree, Tommy. The narrative always comes later.
Do you remember trading that bottom, Jackus? That $20 skull bottom? Yeah, bro.
Literally everyone was calling for single digits again.
Yeah, this was wild. I remember this.
I hit a monster short on that drop, and then I had a nice long that I mean, perspective is always 2020 or hindsight rather, but yeah, I closed the long for like pennies, and now when I zoom out and I look at that breakout, I'm just thinking to myself, why the hell did I close that long so soon?
There is plenty of alts looking fairly similar as Solana at the bottom right now.
I know a lot of social coins are trying to, carve out a low similar to that.
Yeah. Speaking of which, this is one.
I just like saying this one.
I know. We did lose that ascending trend line. But yeah, I mean, we're trying to put out that bottoming out structure.
Needs more sideways.
Yeah, it does. It needs more time. That's what a lot of these charts need. They need more of that,
It's kind of ironic because I know it's like the flip side with crypto where most people make most of their money longing altcoins, but historically speaking, my best trades have been altcoin shorts. So it's kind of like knowing what's the phrase? Knowing what butters your bread or whatever.
I've not heard that.
I think I said it wrong. Somebody knows.
Butters your biscuit. I think it's butter your biscuit, right?
It's something like that. I definitely misquoted it, but
lubes your buns.
Yeah, that's not what I said.
No. Never.
I think Farcoin's coming down here. Come on back.
Yeah,
down.
I mean, what are market leaders doing into FOMC? Fartcoin and Sui seem to kind of like be those coins.
Fartcoin's nuking.
What, right now?
Fartcoin's down 10% on the day.
How long do you think that Fartcoin can sustain the mind share?
I think, I mean, it's hard to say because really how I'm looking at it is, we obviously had a good bounce off the lows, and I think the market was really trying to find something to bid. And Fartcoin was it. Fartcoin was it. Now that we're, Bitcoin's pressing up into 97K, and I'm looking on my timeline, I'm looking at people, in the trenches. I'm seeing that Fartcoin is like people are now finding or wanting to find something else to bid. And to me, that does not scream like continuation in bullish price action. To me, that screams that it's largely lost a lot of its steam. And could it pick back up? I think so. but I think it probably needs, this pullback. It needs a little bit of a correction. You need some newer, participants to kind of scoop up the bag for it to really head higher. Because we looked at the OI profile the other day on Fartcoin. See if I can pull it up. And I mean, longs are just aggressively pushing this thing higher.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And you really need that underlying spot bid for sustained price action up. Otherwise, this thing's probably going to pull a pop cat and come back down probably to like 45 cents.
I haven't checked the chart for so long.
I think it's kind of like the most natural punt on Sol Beta, right? Like it's the new whiff, the new bonk.
Wait, do you guys not see this? Do you guys not see this?
Oh no.
'Cause I see
yeah.
I see it.
Oh.
Wait. I have a profile picture for that. Oh boy, I'm getting heated. You better say that. Oh boy.
I see it, man.
I see it too.
Yeah, I know you see it.
It looks a little distributive.
It looks pretty similar.
Not that I have the balls to short Fartcoin, because I most certainly do not, but
I shorted it yesterday.
big
We
nuts.
got the balls. We got the balls.
By the balls.
I don't know, man. I don't know.
I think I'd rather just keep bullying Trump token, because the bid on it has been anemic since that squeeze.
Yeah, even when we had that run up yesterday, I mean, it barely moved, and we had the announcement.
I have a better one. Can you pull up Andy chart?
Ah,
I know it's been strong. I was looking at it yesterday.
And then delete everything.
And all that garbage.
And then put the model up to this one. And then the left green circle is September 2024. The left green is September 2024. And the current green box is the current bottom.
I see. It won't fit, but
It will fit. It will.
no.
Just make it bigger. Now make it.
yeah. Well, change the opacity on it too.
Yeah.
I know.
No.
Okay, all right. There you go.
There you go.
Reaccumulation.
Where's the buy model? Let's see.
Shame Max wasn't here to see this.
I know.
But hopefully he is here another day to see it.
Hang on.
Make it
The
bigger.
Yeah.
Put the green box at the top left.
Oh my god.
I mean, that's not bad, actually. Now let me put this back on. Yeah, study. Isn't it clear? It couldn't be any more clear.
Did you fade my call? You
You played my call.
It couldn't have been any clearer. Look at my chart. That's insane.
I kind of want to post that on my timeline.
It always does make me laugh, though. I'm not talking about this chart, but like watching people with a bajillion lines on their trading view, just like, yep.
Oh my gosh, yeah.
And I'm just like, well, if you draw a billion lines, of course it's gonna bounce eventually.
It's It's like those space and time guys that
Yes.
just draw like a gajillion like Gannon waves and fan waves, and
I mean, some of them
those
are
are
really interesting.
crazy.
I'm not gonna lie. Like some of their patterns are, I think, like fascinating. But then other times it's just like you had so many diagonals, like these shapes I've never even heard of on a chart. Talking about like, yeah, of course we saw a reaction at the 1000th diagonal ray that I drew on my trading view.
ICT is still looking for $150 sweep on Bitcoin.
Here it is.
ICT is known to be the biggest scam.
Hang on. Where is it?
150 from 2015.
150.
I always love it when I like say 150 from 2017, and the first thing Tucker does is look at like 2 cents price action from different year.
Log mode, bro. It threw me off. Come on now. Yeah, we didn't get the full fill, but I will say
You're never ever seeing 2022 lows again. Never.
Oh no.
Accept it.
About as clean as it gets.
Should we do banana da-na-na?
Hold on, let me look. I had one yesterday.
They're calling for it in the chat.
Are they?
What is layer?
Oh my god. I have a coin where the OI is up like 500% on the day, but some people would definitely take offense if I said it was a scam. I guess we can do the crime of the crime of yesterday, because I had somebody who is a viewer of Market Check tweet at me a ticker that I hadn't looked at, Sol Lair. I'm quite confident that nobody, I'm quite confident nobody holds this coin.
The fuck?
Today's episode of Binance Scams.
Do you think that they are propping up coins to then rug them to have liquidity to prop up BNB?
100%.
I mean, it's kind of been like a dubious speculation of mine for a while. But, I mean, how do you even prove that?
Yeah.
But I watch BNB just like perpetually bleeding. It doesn't exactly inspire a lot of confidence.
Dude, what
you
is
gotta think like
BNB
who's
target?
buying? Yeah, like who's buying BNB now though?
Dude, what is this?
I mean, BNB as an exchange token probably has more utility than all other exchange tokens because like there is so much stuff you can do with it on the exchange. It's like in that sense it's really useful, and Binance is still by far the largest exchange in the world, like in crypto terms.
The Ponzi's pretty big though, right? Like it's $80-90 billion token.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's just.
Plus, they are doing a regular quarterly burn as well. So once again, if you're gonna go and put in the BNB market cap chart, it hasn't hit all-time high yet, while the price already has, which is rarity. Usually, it's the other way around.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Comments, man. I just posted one of my favorite comments that I just saw in the Discord.
Wait, what? Which one?
I posted it in the general. So
Okay.
All right.
Might turn that into copy pasta. But so I think that's probably a good spot to wrap up the stream. We hope that you guys enjoyed the show. A reminder that Market Check will be back for another episode tomorrow. We are live every New York session, 11 a.m. 11:15 a.m. Eastern Standard Time is typically when we get rolling. And of course, make sure to tune in as well for Market Talk, hosted by King Wabi. That is a Spaces on X, hosted through the Because Bitcoin account as well as Wabi. So make sure to stay following and subscribe to both of those accounts so you can be notified, not just when we schedule those spaces, but also when we go live. FOMC day today, guys. Hoping. I'm assuming we're going to get some market volatility later this week. We'll be here on Market Check to cover it for you all here over the coming days. But yeah, until tomorrow, I will leave you guys with just a little bit of an advertisement talking about your go-to tool for this cycle, which we've touched on a little bit already on this show, right? The BB Terminal. But it is best in class, whether you are an active trader on lower time frames, a long-term investor, or an on-chain degen. You will find huge utility out of the BB Terminal. So make sure to check it out, guys. And of course, as always, stay safe. Thank you again for tuning in.
Tired of outdated trading tools, confused charts, dozens of tabs, endless stress? You're not alone. Introducing BB Terminal, your all-in-one command center for crypto trading. Track your portfolio, monitor the markets, stay ahead, all in one place. From chaos to clarity, from struggle to success. BB Terminal,